It started with a meeting no one expected. Behind McLaren's closed doors in Woking, Lando Norris sat across from his engineers and admitted what few drivers in his position ever dared to say out loud. He had lost confidence. That moment, the so-called honesty session, flipped the balance of power inside McLaren. If you love F1 without the noise, hit subscribe and let's get into it. For months, Oscar Piastri had been the quiet force reshaping the team's hierarchy. Calm, analytical, and relentlessly fast, the young Australian had turned Norris's natural authority into self-doubt. 5 races into 2025, he led the World Championship, not by luck, but by precision. Yet what no one saw coming was how that same pressure would become Norris's awakening. After a self-inflicted crash in Canada and a humiliating 34-point deficit by mid-season, he rebuilt himself from the inside out. And in Mexico City, that rebuild exploded into dominance. A performance so complete it silenced every critic and left Piastri staring at a scoreboard that for the first time in 15 rounds read, "Norris leads." When the season began, everything pointed to Norris as McLaren's natural leader. 4 years of F1 experience, the team built around his rhythm, and a rookie teammate still finding the edges of a new world. But by round 5, the narrative had flipped. Oscar Piastri wasn't following, he was defining the pace. In the garage, engineers started comparing data differently. Piastri's telemetry became a reference. Clean inputs, minimal steering corrections, braking points copied and refined. The Australian's calm precision began to highlight Norris's overreach. Each Saturday, Oscar found tenths. Each Sunday, he converted them into points. For Norris, every qualifying mistake hurt double, once on the stopwatch and again in pride. "At times I did doubt myself," he told Sky Sports. It wasn't the car, it was him. That kind of honesty, rare in a title fight, became the seed of change. What Piastri couldn't know was that his quiet excellence was sharpening the very rival he just conquered. It began in Monaco, the city where confidence and chaos meet. Norris arrived burdened by a 6-race pole drought and a mind cluttered with split-second self-doubt. Every lap, his steering wheel told him exactly where he was losing time, and that constant reminder became a weight. So he did something radical. He switched it off. No reference delta, no blinking numbers, just instinct. "The less I know, the better," he told his race engineer. And suddenly, the tension broke. He stopped chasing the car and started feeling it again. 1 weekend later, the drought was over. Then came Canada. McLaren introduced a new front suspension, a small tweak, but it changed everything about how the car spoke through the steering. Piastri stayed with the old setup, Norris took the risk. He crashed that weekend, but he never made another major qualifying mistake again. That was the night the scoreboard still read Oscar ahead, but inside McLaren, the power had begun to shift quietly. Momentum in Formula One doesn't announce itself, it creeps in through details. After Canada, Norris found rhythm where chaos had lived. The car no longer felt like an adversary, it was an instrument. His pole streak returned, and with it, the raw confidence that once defined him. From the Netherlands to Mexico, every session told the same story. Piastri searching, Norris ascending. The numbers backed it up. From round 11 to 20, Norris outqualified Piastri by an average of 0.171 seconds, flipping the season's earlier deficit on its head. Each lap looked less like survival and more like statement. In Austin, he punished Piastri's small errors. In Mexico City, he destroyed the field. The roar that followed his victory wasn't relief, it was recognition. For the first time in 15 rounds, the Briton's name topped the standings by a single point. He'd rebuilt what the Australian had once dismantled, but now, every lap would feel like borrowed time. Success has a strange echo in Formula One. The same pressure that forges one driver can quietly fracture another. As Norris found clarity, Piastri began to drift into the kind of uncertainty that had once haunted his teammate. His trademark calm looked thinner on the radio. Small mistakes in Austin, hesitations in Mexico, fractions that became headlines. In a season where hundreds decide everything, those tenths told a brutal story. Before the mid-season break, Piastri had been the faster McLaren in 6 of 10 qualifying sessions. After it, Norris reversed the balance completely. The Australian's precision was still there, but now it came with effort, not instinct. And inside the team, the atmosphere shifted. Engineers who once whispered about Piastri's data now looked to Norris for reference laps. The momentum had changed direction, and McLaren's quiet internal rivalry had turned into a test of endurance, not for speed, but for nerve. By late season, the McLaren garage felt like two different worlds under one roof. On one side, Norris had redefined himself through instinct, raw, reactive, unfiltered. On the other, Piastri was still the meticulous engineer behind the wheel, methodical to a fault. Norris thrived on chaos, driving faster the less he thought. The less I know, the better wasn't just about telemetry anymore. It was a mindset. Piastri, meanwhile, studied every trace, every micro-adjustment, trying to decode what had suddenly made his teammate unstoppable. Their feedback and debriefs began to diverge. Norris demanded a car that felt alive at the front. Piastri preferred balance and predictability. McLaren's engineers caught between philosophies started to chase two setups instead of one. The result was tension masked as professionalism. Both drivers said the right things in front of cameras, but every Friday meeting felt like a silent qualifying battle that never ended. 4 races left, 1 point between them, and an entire team split down the middle. McLaren had dreamed of a title, not a civil war. But as the championship tightened, the rivalry became impossible to contain. Every debrief felt like diplomacy. Every upgrade carried unspoken politics. Norris arrived in Mexico with momentum, Piastri with questions. The Britain's victory there wasn't just pace, it was presence. He dominated the weekend like a man who'd unlocked a new gear. Piastri, finishing 5th, looked composed but distant, processing what had slipped away. Inside McLaren's data room, the margins told the truth. Since the mid-season break, their qualifying gap averaged 0.033 seconds, nothing. But perception had shifted. Norris was the hunter-turned-leader, and Piastri, once the prodigy, now faced his first real crisis. For both men, the next mistake wouldn't just cost points, it could decide who owns the team's future. As the season heads into its final act, McLaren stands on the edge of triumph or fracture. What began as a healthy rivalry has become something deeper, almost existential. Each driver is now the other's mirror. Norris rediscovering belief through chaos, Piastri learning how to bend without breaking. Neither can afford weakness. The gap between them, 1 point, 1 breath, 1 corner, feels smaller than ever, yet the meaning behind it is enormous. Inside Woking, engineers whisper that whoever wins this title will shape McLaren's next generation of cars and maybe its culture. For fans, it's the purest kind of Formula One theater. Respect, rivalry, and the relentless pursuit of perfection within the same walls. And as Brazil looms, the question isn't just who's faster, it's who survives the storm they built together.